Hey football freaks, it's Alan. Just wanted to take the time here to let you know that this week's show is brought to you by Pretty Easy Podcasts. If you're thinking of doing a podcast, there is a way for you to do a show without having to become an audio editing master, a production whiz kid. You can just go to prettyeasypodcast.com and get your own personal producer at a very, very low cost. That'll be someone who can guide you, assist you, help you out with whatever you need to get your podcast off the ground. If you have an idea or a topic you want to talk about on a weekly basis, a daily basis, it doesn't matter. Go to prettyeasypodcast.com. Get started today. Take some of the hassle of starting a podcast off your shoulders and let the audio professionals at Pretty Easy Podcasts help you out. Pretty Easy Podcasts is where podcasters go to get their shows recorded and posted with a complete podcast studio at their disposal. Record from home or your office or anywhere, really. Pretty Easy Podcasts caters to your schedule and gives you a producer for your show at your beck and call. Go to prettyeasypodcasts.com, sign up today, be heard, have some fun podcasting, and don't let a lack of technical knowledge hold you back. Go to prettyeasypodcasts.com today.
This is the future. This is not the past.
The new XFL will kick off in 2020.
If you smell what the XFL is cooking.
It's still football, but it's professional football reimagined.
This is our moment, our story to tell. This is history begun.
This is the XFL.
Welcome, football fans. This is the week of October 27, 2019. This is the road to 2020, and this is the XFL show. I'm Alan.
I'm Vince.
And I'm Bryant.
This week, the schedule for the 2020 season was released. We know the coaches, we know the players, we know the matchups. This is episode 93. Time to mark your calendars because we are only 15 weeks away from kickoff, and we know that when we kick off in 2020, that very first game will be the Seattle Dragons at the DC Defenders. Bryant, Vince, I'm having a tough time picking one game. I know we're trying to pick up the game of the year we're hyped up the most for. I might have to stall for a while. We've got a lot in front of us on this week's show.
Yeah, Alan, there's 40 choices for you to make if you really think about all the game choices of what the game of the year could actually be at this moment. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But yes, the schedule is out. Alan, you and I broke it down earlier this week on YouTube. It was a great moment. I love this time of year when schedules start getting released because, like I said, I'm a scheduled nerd for whatever reason.
Yeah, Vince, we did the live YouTube show, and we put that also on the podcast feed for anybody who wants to listen to it. Bryant and I instant reactions to the schedule. But Vince, you weren't on that, so you get to give you've had time to think about it and analyze the schedule, and you get to give us your thoughts on the whole map, the 10-week map leading up to the playoffs and the championship game in the XFL. And we'll right out of the gate real quick, just anything that surprised you with the first week of the season.
I'll say this. I'm a little surprised St. Louis was not home that first week. I know we've been talking a lot about that over the past several weeks, months really. I'm a little surprised that Dallas and Bob Stoops, who I still can't believe is in this league, was not featured in a game on Saturday. But yeah, those kind of caught me by surprise. But overall, I'd say this is, an excellent schedule. We've known the times and the networks of these games for quite a while. Now we've got some teams matched up there. I really don't have too many complaints about them. Maybe a little bit the fact that Dallas may have gotten hosed a little bit with the 2 Thursday night matches.
Oh, we'll get to that.
And again, they are the premier team, I suppose. I'm really looking forward to it. Fans across the country right now, you got to be thinking, if you're a Seattle fan, which away games are you going to? People are probably talking about that.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about this week. On this show, we're going to be circling some games, hyping up some matchups, talking about some matchups, getting into some more detail with the schedule. But if you want to hear us break each week down game by game and the overall, instant reaction to the schedule and all the kind of nuts and bolts of what we thought went into scheduling it, that's on the schedule show, the schedule release show that we did. And that is still up on the podcast feed. So wherever you subscribe to podcasts, you probably see it under the episode that you just clicked on, and you could listen to that. It's also up on YouTube if you need graphics to accompany it, because Bryant put together some the schedules there, and he threw it all into the package there. So we have all of that on YouTube as well if you want to listen to that show, which is entirely about the schedule. This show will be a lot about the schedule, but also we've got a great guest this week for the Good Crisp interview. Bryant, you got to speak to your favorite team president.
Another best friend of mine that I will say now, Heather Brooks Karatz. I got to spend a couple minutes with her and talk to her about how the state of the Wildcats is going. And it's really interesting because although it's the Wildcats team president, it gives you kind of a perspective on just team presidents in general of what's going on right now. So we'll get to listen to that in a little bit. But yes, the Good Crisp interview of the week. Don't miss that. That's coming up here pretty soon.
Yeah, we'll get to that here shortly, and we're going to get into a lot of schedule talk. Just to give you a quick update, though, on the Patreon, a lot going on with interviews and bonus content. And, of course, we do have our Not XFL show where we talk all the football that's not the XFL. But we did put that on the back burner last week because there's so much going on with the draft and getting ready for the schedule. That will be coming back to all our general patrons who wait for that show. But for everybody who is on Patreon, instead of This Is Not the XFL show this week, get ready early next week. There will be a special interview. Now, this is sounding a lot like the LA Wildcats show. We do have HBK herself on, Heather Brooks Karatz, the team president, Bryant's best friends with Winston Moss. We talk a lot about them. But next week, if you're on Patreon, early in the week, we will have an interview with an XFL head coach general manager who is not Winston Moss of the LA Wildcats. It'll be another head coach. So make sure, if you want to listen to that interview right away, early in the week, head over to Patreon, and that's where we'll be putting that. And, of course, the full interview will also be on next week's show, dropping, of course, next Football Sunday. But, yeah, we're going to be getting a lot of good, crisp interviews coming up, and everybody needs to get ready because we're going to hear from people on each team within the league as they prepare, because it's kind of the preseason now. Before we were the preseason, the schedule's out now. This is like almost the preseason. I don't know. Does this qualify, Vince, as preseason now? I mean, mini camps aren't too far away. Or do we need? Jake would probably say we need.
Quite sure.
Jake would probably say we need jerseys first, though.
Yeah, it's not necessarily preseason. It's kind of like off season, I guess.
Yeah.
But there hasn't been a season yet, so
that's why I'm calling it preseason. I think we're at that point right now.
Yeah.
So when does the preseason box get checked? Like, when can we start the preseason? Is it mini camps?
Probably January.
Training camp.
I'll say December.
Not mini camps?
I'll say December.
I say mini camp.
December 1, I'm going to start calling it preseason, Brian. All I know is that right now...
Oh my goodness, that's only a little over a month away.
Barely a month away. And right now, even, I mean, Jake's not here, guys, but we are closer than ever to kickoff February 8th, 2 p.m. Eastern on ABC, Seattle Dragons at DC Defenders. I mean, we've never been closer than we are right at this moment to that game. And now we know that that's the game. Zorn back in Washington. Oh, my goodness. I can't wait to break it down. 3 weeks of divisional football to finish the season. This schedule has so much more to talk about, Brian, from what we hit earlier in the week. Real quick, also, earlier in the week, there was some other stuff that went on that you may have missed or you caught and wanted to hear us talk about real quick. I don't know if anybody saw the video of XFL Tampa Bay Viper linebacker Lucas Waka getting drafted, getting a call on his phone. He was a high school linebacker coach on the field with his team when he got the phone call from Mark Trestman and the Tampa Bay Vipers. Did anyone see that viral video this week?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was amazing. It was the whole team huddling around him after he gets the call. We're going to Tampa. I mean, that was really cool to see. And if anybody missed that, where are we going? And everybody huddled around.
If anybody
him.
Missed that, we'll retweet it out so you guys can check it out on our Twitter at XFL Show.
It's cool to start learning more about all the players, right? Because we do know the players. And Vince, one of your favorite players who we talked to on this show, had a feature written up on him on XFL.com this week.
Absolutely, yeah. Anthony Johnson, senior, and a very versatile player that, we've had our eyes set on this kid for quite some time, and we can't see him to really get after it.
Yep, he's up on XFL.com. They did a cool long form article on Anthony Johnson, who is he's on the LA Wildcats, Brian. We talked to him, a friend of the show, and now he's on the team that we've become so close to, which is really cool to see. Well, you mostly. I'm like via you close to the LA Wildcats.
I FaceTimed you. I mean, if that counts, I FaceTimed you from the post draft party.
I got to FaceTime observe Winston Moss DJing a party, so that was cool. Other stuff this week and rumors surrounding the XFL and their partner Fox, who tried out Greg Olsen on a bye week, the Carolina Panthers tight end, and after he performed well calling a football game in the announce booth, rumors swirling that Fox wants him to call XFL games. Vince, how cool would that be to see an active NFL player calling XFL games?
I never really thought about it from that perspective. I'm not sure how much Greg Olsen really excites me. I haven't really seen any of his work, but I guess I could see him doing decently well at it. I mean, what do you guys think?
I mean,
excited?
I listened to him call a game on Fox. He's really good. He's much better than Jason Witten, I'll tell you that. If we're judging him based on how tight ends do color commentary, I think he's really good. And I just think it would be amazing to see an actual, if he doesn't retire and still active, that would be pretty crazy.
Well, Alan, I mean, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to see him on Fox, though, really, if you really think about it, right?
He would be the FS1 guy. You're right, because that'd be Joel, right? That'd be Joel Klatt.
Joel Klatt officially tweeted this week that he's beyond excited. Here's a quoting his tweet: "Excited beyond words for the spring to be with @Kurt Menefee for the XFL 2020 season." So I know there's been a lot of rumors spread, out there about who the announced teams were going to be, but at least Joel Klatt's confirming that it's going to be him and Kurt Menefee, calling the games for Fox.
Yeah, that's going to be. I think that's going to be a hell of a team. Klatt and Menefee calling on Fox as the A team, and then we'll see what other teams Fox and ESPN both put together for these broadcasts. Vince.
Yeah, that's. I think that's probably the one of the big things left that people are really and obviously the rule book, obviously uniforms, but this is something that's big for me. What personalities are going to be telling the story.
Yep, those are really going to be kind of the faces of the league in some regard. So that's going to be interesting, at least from the network side of things. And we'll continue to monitor that. Of course, we'll continue to monitor jerseys. I know a lot of hoopla this week with the St. Louis Battlehawks president saying sometime in November, which we've all kind of generally known. No exact date for those jerseys yet, but I love just seeing still. I feel like how long has it been going on, Bryant, where we've seen, oh, here's a leak of the Battlehawks jersey, a sneak peek of the Vipers jersey. I mean, you don't know what's real or not. All you know is that people are crazy excited. This is a lot like the team names. The jerseys are what's next on a lot of people's mind.
Oh yeah, a lot of people want jerseys, especially Jake. He keeps asking me if I heard anything, if I seen anything. I keep telling him no. But you're right. The team jerseys are going to be kind of cool. If you look at the team schedules, you see kind of glimpses. They look a little there are jerseys on there, but I feel like they're more just kind of images. They're not really the actual jerseys. So stay tuned. November, it'll get here. They're not going to play with just T-shirts. I promise you that. So they'll get here when they get here.
Yeah, we got the schedule in the meantime. This is a lot to sink our teeth into, and we're going to do just that coming up.
Where football goes to be reborn. Where football goes to be reimagined. Where one goes to find more of what they need. A place with endless possibilities and hidden gems. A place where only one's limitations determine how much is explored. A place that gives you all the football you can handle and more. This is the XFL Show's Patreon, guiding you to February 2020. Go for two and the lead.
All right, to start off this week's cover 2, let's talk about XFL tickets going on sale. Season tickets, single game tickets, they're on sale. They went on sale this week, which means the schedule must have come out. Oh yeah, it did. Everybody, if you haven't seen it yet, you need to go to XFL.com and start marking your calendars and start picking games to go to. And if you're in one of the XFL cities, why wouldn't you get season tickets? They're super affordable, which we've talked about. It's insane. I've seen how all these have been charted up against each other. Virtually all cities have basically the same price points. And I mean, you could get season tickets for $100 for 5 games. Plus then you got hopefully playoffs for your team. That's, I mean, in this day and age, amazing. But the games themselves, the matchups, we know the dates of them all. And we said before this week, Bryant, we're gonna have a fun game where we say if you could only, a hypothetical, which we love to do, you can only do one game all season long in the regular season of this schedule, which one would it be? Now it's come time to pick one, and I don't know if I'm ready. You go first.
Well, it was a hard choice, and I tried to play fair, not favor the Wildcats in this one. I really went through and figured out what would be the best matchups, the atmosphere of the crowd. I have a top 3, if that's okay, Alan. I know that wasn't really part of the rules, but maybe that'll help you guys out. My number 3 choice would be Houston at Dallas, week 4 on FS1. I think that's great. The first Texas game, the Texas battle between these two is going to be great. My number 2 choice is the opener of the entire season. It's Seattle at DC week 1 on ABC. I mean, who wouldn't want to go to that game? It's going to be DC. It's going to look great. And it's the first ever game. You have to at least try to go to this one if you're in the area. But my number 1, and it saddens me to say, but I will say it out loud, it's going to be the first home game for the Battlehawks, New York at St. Louis, week 3. I think that's the game that if I had to only go to one game without favoritism or bias, I would say that I would want to be in that first game back with professional football in St. Louis.
So you're talking Sunday, February 23rd, 3 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. The Guardians at Battlehawks is your top game you're circling that you would want to be there for if you're an unbiased non-LA Wildcat XFL fan, someone who just wants to go see probably the most hyped football game of this season in the XFL.
Well, yeah, and definitely. I mean, you don't know how long football's going to be in St. Louis again, so you definitely want to make sure you try that.
Come on, quit, man. Well, I don't know if you're making it to that game, but I could see why you would say that. That dome's going to be rocking, and I know people are already tweeting at us at XFL Show about it, just saying they've bought, tweeting out pictures of the screenshots of them buying their tickets and talking about how that's the game that everybody is hyped for. It's going to be really cool to see. I can't wait to see, that balanced Kevin Gilbride offense go against what's probably going to be one of the most vicious defenses in the league, at least on paper, Vince, the St. Louis Battlehawks. That definitely is a game I don't mind you saying that, Bryant, but that's not my game. Vince, you go before me though, because I'm still picking between 2.
Yeah, I'm kind of deciding between 2. Is this you're talking about a game that I'm going to attend?
A game that if it's the game, it's the preseason game of the year on paper. You just got the schedule here. You say, oh, that's the game. So help me God, that's it. You're gonna go to it. You think everyone should go to pay attention to it. That's the game of the year. That's what we're talking right now.
If you're talking about a game that would be worth going to, I would really say week 9 on a Thursday night, this Dallas at Houston game. To me, this is Bob Stoops and Hal Mummy versus June Jones. Just a wide open, outstanding Texas coaching matchup. It's at Houston, which I think is really going to have a great home atmosphere in their stadium. I think this is just going to be an outstanding spectacle. This matchup.
That's a Fox game on a Thursday night, Vince. You think the Thursday games in the XFL, we only have 2 of them at the end of the year. Do you think they're going to be, because kind of the NFL is notorious for their Thursday games being kind of lackadaisical, but I think having those at the end of the season the way they are, the XFL should be all right in terms of the quality of the play in those Thursday games.
Just the quality of the play.
I think so too. That's it is towards the end of the year. Teams should be in a little bit of groove. They're gonna have to throw off their routine a little bit for these Thursday games. But I I think it's an interesting proposition. I think the league's gonna benefit from it. I really do.
All right, I guess it's my turn now, Bryant. Man, I don't know. That's Vince kind of almost stole mine there. I had that one pegged, but then I'm thinking to myself, I'm saying, I love the matchup. I think it's going to be a rivalry game, but it being on a Thursday, I don't know if I could pick a Thursday game to be my preseason game of the year that everyone absolutely has to be paying attention to. It's going to be the best game. It's my prediction for the best game. So what I'm going to go with instead is Saturday, February 8th, 2 p.m. Eastern on ABC, Seattle Dragons at DC Defenders. You're talking about Jim Zorn returning to Washington, D.C. Just to hear the crowd maybe, possibly, probably boo him, and also to see, you're going to have Cardell Jones out there. You're going to have the pomp and circumstance that goes along with it being the first game ever for the XFL. If you're going to go to a game, that's it. The first game, if you could make it to it, if you could watch one, watch it, because when you watch it, hopefully you get hooked, and then you watch the rest of them. So that's the one I'm going with, Bryant, Vince. Seattle, DC Defenders, that very first game ever. And hopefully LA and Houston have a tough time topping it, because I'm hoping that's the best game of the week in week one. But if we're looking on paper, my prediction for the best game of week one is probably going to be Dallas and St. Louis, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, it's fun to think about this schedule and which games will be the most exciting preseason. Obviously, a ton happens throughout the year. Those last 3 weeks are going to be super interesting. They're all in interdivision. But for the part 2 of this week's cover too, Bryant, you had a really interesting idea for us this week, so you set it up.
Yeah, Alan, I had a cool idea. I saw it kind of floating around on Twitter and social media, so I thought it'd be kind of cool to talk about what we could name some of these rivalries, right? You have some natural rivalries with like Houston and Dallas, maybe something with LA and Seattle. There's going to be some natural rivalries, obviously, but there's going to be some cool showdowns. And kind of the coolest part of college football is when you get into this part of the season where they're at right now, you start seeing a lot of these trophies or swords or different little, figurines passed around because
Paul
of
Bunyan's axe.
Yes, all these different things passed around.
The Egg
But that'd
Bowl.
be cool to kind of name some of these rivalries.
Well, a lot of those rivalry trophies are relics from days past. I don't know.
They had to start somewhere, Vince. Why not start today?
We'll see. I hope there's some rivalry trophies out there, but it's hard. I don't think you could have rivalry trophies if you're playing teams more than one time a year.
So then you think a trophy could only be up for grabs in the cross division games that you're saying?
I just don't. I'm just saying.
In our hypothetical world with trophies for
so you're saying like when the Battle
games?
Hawks and the Wildcats face off, they should have like a Battle of Los Angeles trophy or something.
If they're only playing once a year, yes.
Okay.
What if no? See, you're limiting it. What if you only get the trophy if you win both games?
That's a little.
Well, I wasn't actually talking about like passing trophies around. I was just saying how cool it is to name rivalries. So I feel like some of these should be named going into the XFL. Like, so, a lot of people were trying to do like the Texas Showdown or something like that for the Houston and Dallas one. Things I saw like that. So I just thought it'd be cool if you could think of any for any of these matchups to kind of put our stamp on it right now.
All right, I came up with a few. If you'll indulge me, Bryant, and I'll listen to whatever you got afterwards. All right, I have one for East versus West matchup. I have a couple ideas for this one, considering they're both lizards. Tampa Bay versus Seattle.
Reptiles, Alan. Reptiles.
What's the difference? Is there a difference? Lizards?
I'll teach you later.
Like reptiles. Snakes are reptiles.
It's a lizard.
Lizards are not snakes.
Oh, okay, sorry. I apologize. I didn't watch too much of the the crocodile
You're
hunter
offending
growing up.
the snake community out there.
Some people
Don't
will
show
be happy
bias
I'm
towards
doing
one
that.
team. Just because you don't like the Vipers doesn't mean you can talk trash about them.
What do you mean I don't like the Vipers? I'm a big fan of the Vipers. The logo, the
I'm pretty
coach.
sure Alan's a huge fan of every team at this point.
There's really if anything, that I dislike about any of the teams just yet. Just once play starts, I'm sure that'll change. Okay, Tampa Bay versus Seattle. I have two names. Let me know which one you like, if any. Reptilia. It's also the name of a cool rock and roll song.
I feel like that's also like a convention of the reptiles, like somewhere that happens.
What about, one's a dragon, the other lives in a swamp, so we just call it Swamp Fire.
I think I like that one better. I mean, it's not going to be easy. Maybe we shouldn't do this. I don't know.
Yeah, well, okay, this one might be better, though. But there would actually have to be something up for grabs. DC and New York, since one's a guardian, one's a defender, so you make it the showdown for the shield. And then there's a big shield with both team logos on it, and the winner, or only if you win both games in the season, though, does your team get it.
You almost have me there.
That's a good one.
I like the name.
Showdown for the shield. I mean, that really could add some oomph to the rivalry. All right, last one I got here. Houston and Dallas, you call it the Red River Rumble.
I think you can only have a Red River showdown if one team's from Oklahoma.
Can you? Doesn't the Red River go through Texas, though?
Well, yeah, but
I'm learning a lot about geography and
isn't the Red River the way
National
that
Geographic
people get
topics
from
this week.
Austin to Oklahoma City or whatever it is, or to Norman?
Does it not go near Dallas or Houston?
I don't know. This is hard.
I'm going to say it doesn't actually.
Well, then you come up with something, because this is hard. Bryant gave us a hard task here.
I gave you a week. I'm just putting that out there too.
Well, I was busy looking at matchups and players. Sorry.
You weren't looking at maps.
or I don't know, like the ecosystems of swamps already, or looking up lizards or anything. I'm sorry. Animal Planet.
Vince, can you think of any off the top of your head? Down.
Let's see here. Carry the 2 times 3.
Vince is performing calendar, what we call right now.
Yeah, well, the Red River, just so you know, runs right past through from Louisiana all the way through Texas up to Oklahoma, and it does sort of pass Dallas. So I'm not too stupid in that regard.
I like the for the Houston Dallas matchup. I thought this was kind of just a cool play on words. I call it the XFL showdown.
I like that better. I'm going to delete all the stuff I just said about Red River and sound dumb, and just add that. That's great. XFL. This is the XFL showdown. I like that.
Yeah.
And just
that might be the best one you know what? That might be the best one we come up with. Let's just move on.
You want to just leave it at that? When's the first game between them?
Could come up with a different one.
The first game between them?
4.
Week 4?
Week 4.
Oh yeah, week 4 is the week I said on the earlier show that's the week. And that's on FS1. So Greg Olson, if you're listening and you call that game, Bryant is going to allow you to call that the XFL showdown if you want to steal that. Or whatever announcer calls that game. They definitely should use it. You grant them permission, Bryant? It's your baby.
Can I at least make a t-shirt out of it though?
Yeah, of course. You came up with it.
Okay. That's what I'm going to go with. The XFL showdown. I'll come up with another one maybe for next week. How about that?
All right. And I cannot wait for @XFL show this week on Twitter to just get a bunch of people calling me an idiot for not knowing where the Red River goes through.
Alan, if I can mention this real quick, because you did just mention the Twitter. We did run a poll this week about week 1. If we could talk about that really fast. Fans, I put out there that vote on which game you are most excited for, most hyped for, I guess you could say, for week 1. If you remember correctly, that week 1 is the Dragons at the Defenders, Wildcats at the Roughnecks are the Saturday games, and then on Sunday you have the Vipers at the Guardians and the Battlehawks at the Renegades. Coming in with 39% of the vote is the Battlehawks at Renegades, is what the game that most fans are hyped for. But I guess that's
think
because
that's what I voted for, actually.
that's not what you voted for as well, because you're a Renegades fan.
No, but how can you not? The play, not even just the coaches or the fact that it's St. Louis coming back to football. That the matchups are insane in that game. We'll get into it, but that's going to be a good game. That's what I would have voted for.
Yeah, I did vote for that. Although, of course, I'm very excited to see that first game, Seattle at DC. But then I feel just so hyped for this LA at Houston game for no other reason that I just want to see Winston Moss coach. I mean, I feel like Brian has been, hyping up this guy to be, the next Bear Bryant.
LA stands for excellence.
Just can't wait to see.
Look, Winston Moss hypes himself up enough. I mean, that guy he's full of energy. He's going to be running up and down that sideline. I'd love to see who's in charge of bringing him back to the sideline during games, because you're going to lose. That's not going to be a good job to have.
Yeah, Brian, I don't know why you don't throw your hat into the ring there to be the on sideline control.
Sideline control, Winston Moss. Are you out of your mind? I want to see my baby grow up.
I have a real quick bonus since we failed miserably naming these rivalries. Maybe we have to naturally let that play out. Also, I'm looking closer at a map. Red River is so far from Dallas. I'm such an idiot. Okay, of week 1, we could add
Maybe
this.
If it was just River, you'd be okay, Alan. But since it's the Red River.
That's not fun to make fun of color blind people, Brian. All right. Bonus question then. We'll add this to a poll, Brian, at XFL Show on Twitter. Ask everybody for week 1, and I'm sure, if any ticket sale information comes out, we'll know beforehand maybe. But which one do you think is going to be the most packed house of the week 4 home teams? DC hosting, Houston hosting, New York, and Dallas.
All right, making the note. We'll put that out this week.
And
I'm going to say it's St. Louis.
Well, they're not home.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Packed house.
Yeah.
You're saying based on percentage of seats filled?
Yeah, you got to, because obviously the MetLife is like twice the size of all of those stadiums that are going to be in week 1.
I'd say
but they're also.
I'd say it's going to be either Dallas or Houston week 1. I mean, DC has a chance because that is a small stadium from what I understand.
Yeah, it's a MLS stadium. Do you think if the Nationals win the World Series, will that have any weight? Will that carry any weight over onto it? With all the good things happening for DC sports and how bad DC football is right now, do you think people will get hyped for the DC Defenders for week 1, Brian?
I think so. Sports seems to be, popping. You just had the Capitals win the Stanley Cup not, a year or so ago. You have the Nationals playing for the World Series right now. And the Redskins aren't too good and they don't play very close to town. So why not have this team be your new football team if you're kind of disappointed with the Redskins?
That's my pick.
And you're actually really excited for football to come back.
Yeah, I think that's my pick for this poll question is DC. I have a feeling, especially considering it's soccer stadium, Vince, I think that's going to be a special place. And, you and I and Jake earlier this week, we're talking a little bit about it. We're going to try to probably make it to that game in person. So hopefully we'll be a part of that. Hopefully it's going to be an awesome atmosphere when Zorn returns to DC.
What game do you think will have the highest gate the first weekend?
Well, New York charges the most, but it's only like by $5 more than all the other teams. And if you looked at the ticket prices, it's all super affordable. I guess New York, because they could fill, they have the most available seats. You got to say that. And then cannot wait to see that converted baseball stadium into the new home of Bob Stoops' Renegades.
I just feel very skeptical about that. The layout of it. I need to see it first.
I've seen they've put out the seating charts and how it's going to look. You can't visualize.
Yeah, I know.
That.
I just don't know how I feel about it.
It's a baseball stadium that you're going to go watch football, and the Raiders have done it for years. It's fine.
Yeah, and look how great they're doing.
Well, yeah, they haven't been good for a while. But the foods they serve at that place, right? You know that Bob Stoops is the head coach of that team, right?
hard to believe, but yeah, I guess.
I think I cannot wait for February 8th. Even more so now that the schedule's out. We've got games to talk about, and we're going to break them down some more coming up shortly because we talked a lot about it, Brian, earlier on that bonus show we did on YouTube, and we went week to week. But looking at it closely since then, we've observed some advantages possibly and some disadvantages possibly for some teams, and also, again, looking at the rosters of these teams. I've identified some matchups now that I'm even more interested in now that we have the schedule. So we're going to get into all of that in a little bit when we get to our hot read. But before that, the new segment on the show that we're running with, and we're going to keep it going each and every week, we hope, with awesome interviews. And this week we got one of our favorites, team president of the LA Wildcats, Heather Brooks Karatz. You got to catch up with her earlier this week, Brian. What are we about to listen to here?
Well, you're going to listen to my other best friend from the LA Wildcats, Heather Brooks Karatz. You guys will understand why I'm saying that now. But we're getting the perspective of a team president. We've talked to Heather before on this show. She's been gracious enough with her time a few times, actually, really, on the show. Some interviews also during the summer showcase, as well as when the team names went out. But we're getting the perspective of a team president. We've heard from coaches. We've heard from players. I wanted to get her perspective now that the draft is over. To see what she's planning on doing, what they're planning on doing. I get into game day festivities, things like that. So it's a pretty good interview. I know this is an LA Wildcats. I mentioned it before that it's an LA Wildcats interview, but this gives you a lot of perspective a lot of perspective on how it is to be a team president for the XFL teams right now. And Heather does a great job explaining all that.
All right, well, let's take you to it. It's this week's Good Crisp
football
interview of the week with LA Wildcats president Heather Brooks Karatz.
All right, football fans, it's Bryant, and I have the coolest team president on the phone, Wildcats president Heather Brooks Karatz. Heather, welcome back to This Is the XFL Show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Love being back and appreciate all the love you're giving the Wildcats.
It's really just a lot of fun, spending a lot of time with you guys. I did want to go into a little bit, now that the draft is over, we've heard a lot from coaches, from players. I wanted to ask you as a team president, how does it feel that the draft is now complete?
It's incredible. It's like overnight we have 70 plus Louis players on our roster, and we're becoming a real team. It was, for me, even professionally, it was such a bucket list moment being in that Roar Room with all of our coaching staff, the one and only Winston Moss, as always, with his exuberant personality, which made it so much fun. And then we had media and fans who were sweepstakes winners who got to participate in all the action. It was totally unique and incredible to have that group of people experience this kind of like once in a lifetime opportunity of building a league and a team and drafting a full roster at one time.
Yes, it really is the preseason that we'll never see again. So a lot of opportunities for fans, players, yourself. I mean, just everybody getting to experience something they don't really get to do quite often in a lifetime. But now with players officially a part of the LA Wildcats, can we expect them to see them around town at different events? Anything you can share about that?
Yeah, I mean, we had a good representation out of the guys we drafted that are local to Southern California, which is awesome. But our quarterback, Luis Perez, is incredible. He's been in the office. We had a press conference yesterday that he participated in. He is a great, great guy, and we're starting to work together a lot, and can't wait to do more with our players.
Well, you mentioned that press conference that you had. It was a big day this past week with the official announcement of the partnership between the Wildcats and Los Angeles Unified. Can you talk a little bit about that partnership and what it means for both organizations?
Yes, huge moment for us as a club. I mean, we've really been focused on community at our core. And Los Angeles Unified, the school district in LA, was one of the first groups we talked to, and a huge partner from day one. And now we get to announce that publicly and start to build a really long-term, meaningful relationship where we can have an impact on the community. I mean, the sport of football is at the core of everything XFL and the Wildcats, and we're going to put a great product on the field and a great game day experience. But ultimately, that football and our sport has to be a springboard for greater impact in our community across our country. And we're going to start that here in LA with LA Unified.
Yeah, some huge announcements where, the LA Unified, one of probably the biggest districts in the country, to be a partner with them and help, the youth and the coaches in any way, shape, and form is going to be pretty big for the XFL and for LA Unified.
Yeah, and it's a unique partnership because we're a professional league that plays in the spring. And the high school programs and school programs around football with LA Unified are in the fall. So it's our off season where our coaching staff can really get involved with LA Unified and give their time and expertise to really make a hands-on impact during football season for LA Unified.
So many different things happening with the XFL in terms of the timing of the season. So many different opportunities to reach out to the community. Heather, Allen, and I we had the opportunity to sit down with XFL COO Jeffrey Pollock while we were live at Stanford for the draft, and he mentioned, in essence, that team presidents were not really given a script when they were hired, and that team presidents would be given the opportunity to find what works best for their market. How has it been trying to write your own script, really, for the Wildcats and the Los Angeles community?
It's really an incredible opportunity professionally, and with everyone who's come on board with the Wildcats, everyone has their input and flavor that's been incorporated into what we're doing, and that's where it's really cool getting to build something together. That will be the case not just internally with staff, but also externally with our community and partners, is we really want everybody's thumbprint on this to make sure it's a reflection of all of our fans and our community. But internally, I'm super close with the other team presidents. We collaborate all the time. But what works in LA doesn't necessarily work in Tampa Bay. And that's okay, right? But we can share best practices and make the league as a whole stronger across the country.
Well, football fans, on the phone here is XFL Wildcats team president Heather Brooks Karatz. Heather, I mentioned it before, but you and Ryan Gustafson of the Dragons have really been the only presidents to kind of reach out to their communities via social media. Are there plans to expand that in some ways, or maybe other platforms? Social media is a tool that wasn't really around for startup leagues in the past.
Yeah, the content and the social platform is core to what our plans are across the league, and I think it will only get larger in every market and more significant in every market as we grow.
Well, I'll just throw it out there that if podcast is a thing you want to do, we're here for you. Just putting that out there.
Always here for you guys.
Although
I'm a little jealous. Winston has been called out as your best friend. Your best friend throughout the podcast. I'm a little jealous of all the love. Now I'm ashamed. Now I feel a little bad about it on this side. Soon gears will shift, though, to actual game week and game day activities. So can we talk a little bit about what some of the things that fans can expect as far as player and coaching staff access when the season kicks off in February? Still a work in progress. But we are super excited about it because access is at the forefront. But what I can say is we want your input. We want everybody's input on making game day incredibly special and truly a reflection of what our fans want. So anyone who's got ideas, there's no bad idea, please reach out to us on social media. At XFL Wildcats.
You beat me to it. I was about to throw that out there. At XFL Wildcats, for sure to reach out to them. Heather, the schedule was released this past week. Single game tickets are on sale now, basically. Can you talk a little bit about the pricing and how important it was to get, people can get into a game for $20?
Isn't that incredible? $20 to come to a game. Here we've got, it's more to go to the movies. And over 50% of Dignity Health Sports Park is $30 or less. So we're not talking about $20 to sit up in the rafters. That's in the lower bowl. And more than 50% of our venue is at $30 or less. So we're really taking this affordability message seriously. I'm so glad I can talk about it because it's critical to how we're going to really stand out in this market and make sure that we can provide a game day experience for everyone.
Game day experience is something I hear often when it comes to the XFL. Is that going to include pre-game festivities? A lot of times people show up to a professional football game now and they just kind of show up and watch a game. Are there going to be some pre-game festivities, in the parking lot or anything like that fans can expect when they get to the game?
for sure. Stay tuned for more details, but for sure. I mean, these games primarily on Saturdays and Sundays where you want to be with your friends, you want to be with your family. So when we're asking you guys to come out for our game days, it's got to be a really fun community environment that has something for everybody, and that's what we're building.
All right, Heather, the season kicks off for the Wildcats Saturday, February 8th in Houston, but the party at Dignity Health Sports Park starts Sunday, February 16th against the Dallas Renegades. Single and season tickets are available now at XFLWildcats.com. Make sure you guys get your tickets today. Heather, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us here at This is the XFL Show, and I really can't wait for those awesome meet and greets.
More to come really soon, Brian. Thank you so much for having me, and go to XFLWildcats.com. Do not miss that home opener February 16th. Can't wait to see you all there.
No bad ideas, huh, Bryant? I've got a great idea for pregame festivities.
Okay. Please.
Coach Winston Moss DJ set for at least an hour and a half. Come dance, eat, drink, and listen to Coach Winston Moss spin some tunes.
He's going to be prepping for a game, Alan. That's just not possible.
But he has Norm Chow to do all that. He could.
No, now, as a head coach, you have a lot more to do than your offensive coordinator.
You delegate tasks.
Thank you so much to my best friend, Heather Brooks Karatz, for taking the time to actually talk to us one more time on this show. It's been great.
I've known you for like 20-something years. That's what you've known her not even a year.
Yeah, but she's Heather.
Okay.
Like, you're not her. That's just deal with it.
All right.
Alan, it was a great interview, I thought, with her. She let me in on some insights that I didn't know about the team, what they're planning on doing. I think that's great that they're gonna plan to have fans show up to a game and not actually just show up to a game. There's gonna be things for them to do. Come to the game. She mentioned over 50% of the tickets at the stadium are gonna be under $30. I mean, those are things that all teams are doing, not just the Wildcats.
Yeah.
I think fans can really appreciate that. Families can appreciate that. They can go watch professional football. We talked about value in a couple episodes ago when it came to season tickets. The value you're getting to go to an XFL game. They're trying to make this to where you're not just going and watching a game for a few hours. That this is a whole day thing that you can actually go and have some fun, enjoy the game with the family, with other fans, and just, have a good time. And you don't really see that too much when it comes to professional football nowadays.
And also, we're going back into the schedule again, into the thick of it. But one thing, like you said, all the teams are doing in terms of added, I can't stress it enough. And also, Oliver Luck told us this: getting to go on the field as a season ticket holder at least once a season, and as a fan who shows up. And I mean, you go to these games, you're going to have access, and to be able to go on the field, take that selfie with the family, with a significant other, with your mom or your dad or whomever, your brother, sister, to go out there and be able to go on the field. It's just a freaking thrill that, I mean, even I remember as a kid getting to just go onto the high school football field. It was like, oh my God, one day I hope to play here. I mean, it's really, you can't stress enough how significant that could be, especially for a younger football fan. And that's just one of the many things that these team presidents are coming up with for the game day experience. And yeah, like you said, Bryant, the fact that you're going to go to these games and be able to do so much more than just watch a football game, and it's super affordable, it's crazy, and it's because people like Heather Brooks Karatz are coming up with interesting ways to deliver those experiences. And I can't wait to talk to her and all the other team presidents, because like we said, they all have different ideas too for each of their markets. It's fun to hear what the differences are, what they're working together on, to build this whole league up and make it accessible for fans on game day. Oh yeah, and by the way, we do know those game days and who plays on those game days against who, because the schedule's out. Are you ready to get back into this thing?
I can talk schedule for 6 weeks. Or how many weeks left? 15 weeks.
Hey, football freaks, it's Alan. Just want to let you know about a brand new football podcast that myself, Vince, and his wife, Pam, started. We want more people to hop on board and start listening because we are talking college football, on a national scale with a very extreme Pitt Panther bias. It's called the Hail to Pitt Podcast, and yes, we do focus a lot on the Pitt Panthers, but if you just want to hear us talk more football, if you want a place to go listen to some college football talk, check out the Hail to Pitt Podcast, available on all podcast platforms, whether it's Apple, Google, Spotify, you name it, it's out there. Subscribe today, Hail to Pitt Podcast. It is brought to you by Pretty Easy Podcasts, and it is absolutely free of charge. Subscribe and review today. Hail to Pitt. All right, then. I have some things I need to say. Vince, you've hardly gotten to dip your toe into this schedule yet. Let's finish it all up with this week's hot read.
Blue 58! Blue 58! Go! Hey, Ric Flair! Ric Flair! Pepper, Clip, Caliber. Motown, Happy, Jolly, Drunk, Buster, Boomer, Tiger! I think he's got a hound too, Rodney, I think. B-19! B-19 is fucking! Hey, Seattle! Lion! Orange 83! Omaha!
All right, plenty more reaction left with this schedule release. Weeks 1 through 10 going into the playoffs, and I got to right out of the gate here in the hot read. Bryant, Vince, go into this East versus East, West versus West. Honestly, not the way I was hoping it would go, but considering the final 3 weeks of the season are divisional weeks, it makes sense to me. I'm okay with it. I was hoping that best 4 records got in. How do you think this plays out, Vince, knowing that we have 3 weeks of all divisional games, weeks 8 through 10, and then the playoffs will essentially be conference championship games?
I love it. I mean, because you're basically saying, hey, even if you're out, of the playoffs by a game or 2, going into those last few weeks, you still got a chance to make something happen and make the playoffs.
Yeah, we talked about that, Bryant, how, once you get to week 8, if your record is maybe a little subpar overall, divisionally speaking, you have 3 games to really make a big change in what's going on with your team and make a push to the playoffs. With that being the case, I'm okay. That's why I'm okay with the East versus East, West versus West. But you've been an advocate for this format the entire time, so you've got to be pretty happy about it.
Well, the format, yes. The last 3 weeks of the season, I'm a little iffy about. I get it. I understand. I just think there's some troubles there. But really, it's hard to really get a perfect thing out there with 10 weeks. So I get it. I understand why they did it. I'll move on from it. But the playoffs are totally fine. I mean, if you're going to play these teams, specific teams, more than once every year, then why not make it division? Make division matter somewhat, Alan. You can't just have top 4 if the top 4 aren't always playing the even schedule.
Yeah, I mean, then who knows? You could have maybe have 3 West teams and 1 East, or 3 East and 1 West, and that wouldn't be great for the league. I understand that. This does distribute the amount of fans watching, I guess, regionally. This is also why you do that. I understand that. But what do you think the odds are one of either the second team in the East or the second team in the West being a team with a worse record than non-playoff teams, Vince?
I mean, I suppose it's possible, Maybe not. I don't know. In only a 10-game season, maybe that's, maybe not as likely. I guess I don't see that happening, but it certainly could.
I think I definitely see a team getting into the playoffs that has a matching record to the third place team in the other division. I would see that. So the second place team on the East would be 5-5, and the third place team in the West would be 5-5.
I just most of all want to avoid a college football situation where at the end of the year we're arguing that a team that's not in the tournament should be there. I'm hoping that doesn't happen.
That's going to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, but we see that all the time in baseball. We see that in football, where the 4th, division winner is probably the 6th best team in the league, the 7th best team sometimes. It happens in football, specifically when you have such a short schedule. Those things are going to happen. It is what it is. If you don't want it, just win your games.
Just win. Just win your games.
Just Winston, baby.
All right, let's go into a team-by-team analysis of this thing, Bryant. That's how you said you wanted to set it up. can we whatever team you want to start with? I mean, I have some notes here on favoritism, and in terms of putting teams in the spotlight, obviously the Dallas Renegades are darlings of the league with 2 big Thursday games back-to-back in weeks, 8, 9, and 10.
Well, we can start there. I mean, I have listings for all teams. We'll go in no particular order, but we'll start with Dallas. That was the one thing that really, glared to me when I looked at their schedule is Dallas is playing both Thursday night games, weeks 9 and 10. Some would say the first one is kind of even par. They play that late game, week 8. So it is on the road, if I'm not mistaken, or is it home? I think it is at home, actually. Week 8, Dallas does play against Seattle. But then they got to go to Houston for that Thursday night game. But then they get a whole week off. It kind of turns into an advantage for that week 10 when LA has to go on short days rest, I guess you could say.
Yeah, how bogus is that?
Dallas gets a,
and for the playoffs, too.
Yeah, it could be for the playoffs. I'm just hoping that game doesn't have too much playoff implications.
Yeah, well, look.
Well, even if it doesn't have playoff implications, I mean, if Dallas already has it wrapped up, they're going to have an extra couple days of rest before the actual playoffs start.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too. You're right. Good call.
LA or Dallas. I mean, if one of those teams is a playoff team, they're looking at, 9 days of rest before they play they would play in the Sunday game. They'd have 10 days of rest for the Western Conference championship games, Western Division championship game on April 19th. So those are the 2 Thursdays.
Can you imagine if they played each other again?
That would be...
If LA and Dallas played 10 days rest, then I guess that's not really an advantage of that.
Yeah, then that's fair. That's fair to me. But also you have to consider on April 9th, LA is playing after having played on Sunday, April 5th, in the night game, no less, against Seattle. They're of all the teams in the XFL, they're the only team with that short of a break between games. Huge, not a huge...
Dallas has it too.
A glitch.
Dallas basically has the same break.
Yeah, actually, yeah,
week 8 to 9.
Yeah, week 8 to 9 is pretty much the same. I'm trying to see if there's a difference between the time zones.
The times. Are you going down to the times the second? I'm going to be there with a stopwatch.
That may involve maps, so we'll save that for next week.
Maps. It's fair. Maps, colors, or animals. I'm screwed.
Yeah, you're screwed.
In terms of the fairness, then I guess it's LA and Dallas who are both experiencing those kind of short weeks and potential long weeks. Maybe at the end of the day, maybe you've talked me into it. Maybe that is fair. I'll say what I want, though, going at the end of the season is to be St. Louis. They have a big advantage, I think, home in weeks 9 and 10, Brian.
Yeah, it is pretty big. You did bring up that in the pre-show. They also start on the road twice in a row, so that's going to be interesting too. The St. Louis call-out that I had here, they have Tampa Bay and DC on the road. Like you said, I'm sorry, at home at the end of the season, 2 big division matchups that they get to play, really from the comfort of their own home. They don't have to do much traveling those last 2 weeks. I guess that's the price you pay for being on the road the first couple of weeks, but at least with this, they might have some definite advantage going into the playoffs.
And these are division games that they're home for. Not the beginning of the year where they're playing Western Division foes. The end of the year, they're home and home against division games are weighted. Obviously, St. Louis is probably going to have a tough time. Back-to-back weeks at Dallas, at Houston to start the season off. But I much rather have their schedule because the back end of it is very advantageous when you talk about weighted divisional games. What about the LA Wildcats, Brian? You've bitten your lip.
Yeah, well, bitten
your tongue.
We brought them up. Yeah, I've been talking a little bit on LA, but I'll bring up this, and I don't know if it's an advantage, disadvantage, or just something to think about. But it's really LA's home games are all on Sundays. They play no Saturday home games. They're going to wait the week out, get a little more time while they're resting at home, and they're going to play all their home games on Sunday.
Is that just an LA thing?
No, I mean we play football here on Saturdays. I don't see what the problem is. Traffic's worse on Sundays than it is on Saturdays.
Saturdays in LA are for big fights, I feel like. So Sundays are going to be reserved for football.
Well, you know what? Actually, I think if you think about it, Brian, at least from my perspective when I was living in LA, I would have been very appreciative of the LA Wildcats having all their games on Sundays, because I might often be spending my Fridays and Saturdays in Vegas, but then I could make it back in time for the Sunday game. So maybe that was some of the thinking behind it.
How many times did you go to Vegas while you were out here?
Way too many. Way too many.
Okay. I guess maybe because in LA there are a lot of nightlife out here. Maybe that's the plan when they have these games on a Sunday out here. Who knows? Let's shift over to the East Coast a little bit and let's talk about DC. I want to talk about them twice, in two instances really. We mentioned this on the YouTube, Alan. DC plays no late home games. They all play the first game of the day, and what better than to start the season with 2 straight early home games while people are having to travel to you? You're chilling at home, practicing some more, getting ready to put your team together for the first time on the field.
Oh, I think I figured out why. I looked into that after we did the show on YouTube, Bryant. In D.C., out where they play at Audi Field, out in those Navy yards, public transportation stops at like midnight, I think. So you don't want any late games out there, and you don't want to worry about people not being able to get home. Early in the day, traffic there can be abysmal too. I think that's great. I think if you're a fan in DC, you're probably really happy about the early games whenever they're home.
Vince, would you like to start at home for those first 2 weeks of the season? While everybody's having to travel to you, you get those first 2 weeks to get that little extra practice in. Because it's the first time you're really going to be playing some competitive games.
That's a good point. I didn't really think about that, Bryant. I don't know. There's a lot of unpredictability here. I don't. To be honest, I don't think it matters too much. I mean, if you're at home, you're going to be expected maybe to do some, promotional material. Maybe take part in a street team to spread the word and get ticket sales up. But if you're on the road, your job is just to go out there and win the ball game.
Talk to New York Guardians, Bryant.
There you go.
What do you got on them?
They got an easy schedule in terms of travel to the West Coast. We talked about how some of these East Coast teams are going to have to go all the way to the West, to Seattle, to LA. They really don't have to go to LA, which is a win for them. They play them at home week 4. But they do have to travel up to Seattle. The problem with that is that game, 3 p.m. Eastern. Early start, really favored, I thought, to New York, and not really giving that advantage to Seattle. We'll talk about Seattle in a little bit about that. Expanded a little bit more, but I think New York kind of saved themselves on this West Coast trip they're going to have to do.
Yeah, right. It's a Sunday when they go to the West, coming off of a Saturday game the previous week at home. So yeah, pretty cushy if you're a New York Guardian or a New York Guardians fan. You also, I mean, a lot of these teams, if you're a fan who's willing to travel, and you might be able to get to a lot more games if you're a fan of, say, the Guardians or the Battlehawks than some of the other teams that are kind of going all over the place. What about those Dragons, though? Brian, I've always had a concern for them being all the way up in the northwest corner of the country.
Well, I'm going to flip it on them, and I'm going to say they're at a disadvantage at 2 East Coast games. You really think about 2 teams have to travel to them all the way up there to the East Coast. And it's going to be cold. It's Seattle. It's not, sunshines and rainbows up there. But they got hosed. The 2 home games that they have against East Coast teams, against New York and Tampa. New York, we just talked about week 7. It's a 3 p.m. start. And then week 2 against Tampa. I'm sorry, New York was week 7. Tampa in week 2, a 5 p.m. start. So really just early games. They don't have to play those secondary later games, those East Coast teams. In contrast, when Tampa goes to New York, they have to play at 9 p.m. And when Tampa goes to LA, they have to play at 9 p.m. And when DC goes to LA, they have to play at 6 p.m. I think Seattle got a little hosed on that advantage that they might have had against those East Coast teams.
All right. Well, we're almost through all these teams. I still think right now, if I'm looking at all the schedules, right now I'm loving the Battlehawks schedule most of all. But we have, a couple more to run through? Or a few more. We've got Dallas. Or when we hit Dallas, let's do Houston.
No, we hit Dallas. Houston. We hit Houston already. I think the only one we have left is Tampa, my friend.
We said, wait, what did we say about Houston?
We talked about all their early road games. Didn't we talk about that? Oh, no, we didn't. I skipped them. I'm sorry. Houston, all early road games. So all their road games are early. They don't have to do that late night travel. They're going to get home early. I think that's a huge advantage for their road schedule.
I'm trying to think what kind of schedule I want if I'm a football team with no tight ends and maybe never ever running the ball. Will they run the ball? I don't know. I don't expect them to. They've got like a billion wide receivers. When are you going to talk to Coach Moss next? How's he preparing for all those wide receivers in Houston? And you don't even know which quarterback you're going to be facing in week one.
I don't want to talk too much strategy with Coach Moss at the moment. He's still processing. I'm sure I'll get him for that at some point.
Yeah, he still has camps to go. I think I'm looking way too far ahead. If you're a coach, they're not thinking about that yet. I hope not. They've got to assess their own rosters yet. But man, I'm already thinking, wow, it's going to be a good contrast week one, LA and Houston. But yeah, they've got back-to-back home games actually, weeks 1 and 2, right?
They do as well, you're right. But they play the little variety, LA at Houston, the late game on Saturday, and then the late game on Sunday, week 2 against St. Louis.
And then we have Tampa Bay to still hit. I think we've hit all the schedules except them.
So Tampa Bay, I just really quick want to talk because they're going to be on the road the first 2 weeks. The same with St. Louis. But the problem with them, here's my issue with Tampa, Allen. Houston, not the coldest, but not the warmest place for this whole that we know that it's going to be the training camps, right, that are happening in Houston. And then they're going to go, and that's coming off of their mini camps in their local market in Tampa, so they're going to be pretty warm there. Their first game on the road, probably like a 10-degree game against New York, at MetLife Stadium. To start the season on the road twice. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they're all cold weather games too. They got to go all the way up to Seattle. That's going to be a disadvantage for Tampa. I'm not too sure they're enjoying that first 2 games of the season.
Yeah, I don't know about whether it being an issue, at least in week 2. Maybe week 1 in New York. That definitely is a concern. But the concern most of all, this is the schedule I would not want. Because like you said, on the road, weeks 1 and 2, and they don't even get the benefit of, serving that time. And St. Louis does the same thing, but then they get rewarded 2 home games at the end of the year, while the Vipers are on the road at St. Louis in week 9, and then they get to host New York in week 10. The Vipers are, they get some back-to-backs at home, but not at the pivotal, crucial divisional time the way that St. Louis does, but yet they still have to pay the penance, pay the price in weeks 1 and 2 on the road. That is maybe something to keep an eye on, but then again, you get one on the road to start that season, and you're groovy. You're fine. The thing is, that week 1 game for Tampa is a divisional game. That's against New York. That's a very important one. And you could say that week 1, the most important games are that game and the LA and Houston game, because like I've been saying, weighted divisional matchups, Bryant.
In a 10-week season, I guess that's something you really have to look for, and as well as because the top 2 teams in your division are going to make the playoffs. So winning those games are crucial, especially at the beginning part of the season, because you want to be a little more relaxed towards the end of the season if you can at all make that happen.
Yep, and then in terms of player matchups for any of these weeks, I have 2 that I have circled. That I just, these are the games I want to see some players going at it. We're gonna hopefully see them. Injuries happen, roster changes happen. You don't know what could happen before then, but at least for now, on paper, week 1, I know we'll get this. I want to see that whole defense. St. Louis at Dallas is going to be great. I've been raving about the St. Louis defense. I'm a big fan. Terrence Garvin, but the fact that Terrence Garvin goes against Landry Jones in week 1 should be extra special. And then, of course, you've got St. Louis's defense the very next week having to play against all those wide receivers, Kenny Robinson and all those DBs will help. That they're going to have to go up against that crazy run and gun, run and shoot offense for the Houston Roughnecks, Bryant.
Yeah, 2 big offenses for St. Louis. That defense will be tested those first 2 weeks of the season. That's huge. I'm actually looking forward to week 7 when Winston Moss's defense comes into St. Louis and tries to tame the young gun behind center and Jordan Ta'amu.
Yeah, that's you said it about right. That's also, remember, I expect him to be the starter, but they did get Brogan Rowe back, who was the second quarterback taken in the skills phase of the draft, right? So, he's a guy who's been in some NFL camps. Jordan Ta'amu, I think, is special, but I think St. Louis might be one of the teams we've been talking about that might actually have a quarterback battle in their camp. The others maybe potentially being Seattle. I think you're definitely going to see one in Houston. Potentially, Vince has been calling Tampa Bay. I think New York is. I think Matt McGloin's pretty safe, and I think you're looking at Houston, Tampa, Seattle, and St. Louis as the toss-ups. If you're looking at the training camps, but those are completely different shows and a whole lot more to get into, and we don't have all the time to break down the quarterback battles that potentially may or may not happen. But we have really exhausted and gotten deep into this schedule. I'm sure there's more you have to say, Bryant, but if you do, I don't know, you're going to have to maybe do it on Patreon because, I mean, I'm all scheduled out. I just want these games to come already.
That's the problem now, is that the schedule's out. We have we definitely want the games to just start being played. So you're right. There's definitely more you can talk about. You can break this down into fairness or not. Wait until the season starts, and then things really get crazy in terms of what matchups are key to see, key to watch, and you definitely want to be in attendance for. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Ticket sales are going pretty well too, Alan. We haven't really talked about that too much, but from what I can tell, at least from the tickets that are available, and I'm assuming there's all of them, there's a good amount of tickets being sold to these games.
Oh, they have to be. And if you're in St. Louis, you got to be crazy hype for week 3 p.m., Sunday, February 23rd. I mean, St. Louis, that dome, when they play New York, you were wondering, Bryant, who's going to be that team that's going to have to be the first team to play against St. Louis when football returns to that city. We didn't talk about that, but unfortunately for the Guardians, it's them. I'm kind of happy it's not LA when you consider that, because that is going to be probably the biggest home field advantage anybody has, because I'm expecting maniacs in the crowds screaming for the Battlehawks.
Alan, this game is not in Memphis. It's in St. Louis.
You
realize that?
The maniacs. Oh, yeah, you're right. I get it. Yeah, with an X.
Get it? My dad jokes are on point. I've been practicing. I'm telling you, man, right now.
Yeah, you got to get those going.
It's going to be a great atmosphere there. I've said it all along. I dig to St. Louis a lot, but it's all in good fun. I'm really excited for them to have some football back, and I'm excited to get there to hopefully at least one game this season.
Yep, I'm already circling my calendars. I'm hoping for DC for me personally week 1. We'll see how it shakes out, Bryant. Who knows? Maybe we'll be in St. Louis for that game. I mean, there's a lot of planning and preparation to go into these. If you're a fan, I know, if you're a fan of any NFL team, I know we've done this for years as Steeler fans up here, Bryant, where you pick and plan the games you're going to go to on the road and try to make as many home games as you can. Hopefully you can get season tickets, but this is a really fun part of being a football fan. The schedule gets released, and you map out how your season's going to go, and hopefully your team will win all of the games that you go to, and hopefully they get to the playoffs, and on April 18th and 19th, they're playing for a shot at an XFL championship. Man, this is so cool to actually have tickets to pay for. XFL football fans, this is a special week that we've all been waiting for. I know Bryant was really hyped up for this one, but there is another big mile marker to hit, and probably that next big one, Bryant, I'm going to say is jerseys coming out, right?
Jerseys, I will say this draft, based on what we're hearing, the supplemental draft, that we're hearing about, might be pretty big. We had some players signed to NFL practice squads this week too, so there's gonna be a lot of available roster spots. It's gonna be great to see how these coaches fill out their rosters before minicamps start in December.
Yep, and don't forget the all-important rule book. Even though Bryant and I have already seen the cover of it, we saw it in the flesh, or I guess the actual paper. The rule book coming out will also be another huge one, and probably those will be moments, again, like this week, where we do impromptu live streams on our YouTube channel and put some bonus content out there on Patreon in terms of interviews. Next week, we will have one of the XFL head coaches on the show. And if you want to get it early, make sure you head over to patreon.com/thisisthexfl show. It will otherwise be on next week's full episode. And we have a lot more where that came from. Good, crisp interviews and a whole lot of breaking down all the news that comes into the XFL, Bryant.
Really, it's going to be great, Alan. Go figure. There's going to be a moment in time where the only mile marker left is kickoff. February
8th, Seattle and DC. That's going to be, yeah.
There's so much still to go, but at some point we're going to hit that where that's the next mile marker. It's going to be great. I can't wait for that time to actually happen. But yes, we have a lot coming up. Follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/This Is the XFL Show. We're putting in a lot of content on there. Like Alan said, live streams. We also break up the show, like I always mentioned. So subscribe there. Subscribe now on your podcast gimmick if you haven't already. We're here weekly, sometimes bi-weekly. Who knows? Not bi-weekly, excuse me, twice a week. Not bi-weekly. We're here every week. We've been here every week. Give me the credit for that at least.
Yes. 93,
sometimes twice a week.
93 weeks plus, baby. And it was really hard this week because, like you said, breaking down the game, I found it difficult this week to not want to just talk about Jim Zorn only returning to DC for that first game, how Cardale Jones in that offense matches up against Zorn's D, but we still have some time before we have to do that. But we know the games. The schedule's out. Buy your tickets, XFL.com, and all the teams have their own websites, right, Bryant, that you could go buy tickets at as well if you're in the local markets.
Yeah, it's XFL and then insert team name.com.
Yeah, that's fun to see everybody tweet out pictures of their screenshots.
As an example, XFLWildcats.com.
XFLBattlehawks.com. And please, at XFL Show, if you screenshot you buying a ticket or got a picture of you holding up a ticket or whatever, we like to see it. We love to see the videos everyone's putting out. People are super hyped for the XFL kicking off now that it's real and we have the schedule out. We've got players on rosters. The closer we get, the more we interact, the more fun it is. Seeing cool videos like Lucas Walker getting the draft call. I'm a big fan of that UPS XFL delivery guy, Brian, in particular. That he might have to be a guest at least on Patreon one day. He's hilarious.
We'll make it happen. If you guys want to hear it, tell us at XFL Show, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
It's the quality of the play.
And hopefully you thought that was another quality episode, but we got to get out of here for now. We'll be back next week with a whole lot more XFL talk. For Vince, for Bryant, I'm Alan. This is the XFL Show. Remember, they're listening.
Thanks for watching and listening, XFL fans. Don't forget to tell us what you think in the comments below, or even better, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all things XFL. Check out some of our other videos and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at XFL Show. This is the XFL Show is a production of Pretty Easy Podcasts.